Grammar has been taught as a means of learning languages through the first century, the Middle Ages, the medieval period, all the way up until the last 100 years or so. And the reason for this is that grammar, if you think about it this way, grammar is the language of language, right? Because how else do you describe how languages work other than saying this is a particular component of language doing a particular function? That's what grammar is. It tells you all about the different elements of the language and what they're doing. And it's only in the last 100 years or so that we've actually stopped teaching grammar. And this is what's made it really difficult for people today to be able to learn grammar and also to learn the languages as well. In fact, if you go back to some of the older Greek grammars, they don't teach you grammar, they just teach you Greek. Modern Greek grammars pretty much all will teach you both grammar and Greek at the same time. There's a good chance your knowledge of grammar when you start learning Greek is actually pretty low. And if you're learning Greek and you're not actually learning the grammar as you go, it's a wasted opportunity. I'm going to talk about why in this video. You might ask the question, well, who needs grammar? Why would you need to learn the grammar to be able to read the Bible in the original language? And the answer is, of course, it's true. You can learn how to read the Greek of the New Testament without having to learn the grammar. And if you do, you'll still get clarity in the scriptures about what it says because you're being pulled in and drawn into the worldview and the way of thinking of the original authors. And that's hugely beneficial. And we really want to encourage people to learn how to read the original languages so that they can read the New Testament in the original languages. So all of that's good, but you're still missing out. The thing is that grammar has been taught as part of second language acquisition for millennia. It goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks in the days of Plato and Aristotle, because it was understood that if you're going to actually make arguments based on language, you need to understand grammar. And if you're looking at how all this works, you are going to need to know all of those sorts of things. The reason grammar is helpful in learning a language is because it allows you to build a bridge between what you already know and what you're learning. If you understand the subject of a verb in English, and we tell you that the nominative is the case that you're going to find the subject of the verb in Greek, well, now you have understanding between those two languages. Or similarly, if you know what an indirect object is and how that works in English, then we can just teach you, well, the indirect object is always going to be in the dative case. And you're like, oh, I get that now. Now I know what the dative case does. So the grammar allows you to build a bridge between the two languages, because even though they are very different in so many ways, the function of the language is actually able to be described using the language of grammar. That's what grammar is helpful for. But there's also something very significant that you're missing out on if you don't learn grammar while you're learning Greek as well. Before I tell you that, I just want to ask, if you're getting value out of this, hit the like button. That really helps videos like this one get found, and that helps more people like you learn more about how to learn the Greek of the New Testament and how to get more out of the Word of God. So even though today, most people when they come to learn Greek don't actually know grammar, pretty much every scholar doing any significant exegetical writing does do so knowing the grammar and explaining the grammar as they go. And so by not learning the grammar, what you're actually doing is you're learning the language, but you're cutting yourself off from the ability to use that language to understand what the scholars are actually saying. So you really want to learn the grammar so that you can get access to that scholars. And again, if you're going to do serious Bible study, it's good to know the Greek of the New Testament and be able to read the Greek of the New Testament, but you really need to know the language of the language, so to speak, the language of language itself, so that you can follow the arguments and evaluate the discussions that take place between different commentaries, different commentators, and scholars as they have these discussions about what this word means, how it's functioning in the sentence, and so on and so forth. And if you don't know how Greek grammar works, or if you don't know grammar at all, well, you're cutting yourself off from all of that work. And isn't the whole point of learning the Greek of the New Testament so you can study the Bible? And wouldn't you want to learn to study the Bible in that same depth if you're going to learn Greek at all? That's certainly what I want to see happen for you. And so I want to encourage you, do not cut yourself off from the grammar. Learn the grammar as you learn your Greek. And as you do that, and as you internalize that, that's going to give you a foothold and a standing upon which then you can develop that further and be able to utilize those scholarly arguments later on down the track. And you might say to me, well, can't I learn the grammar after I've learnt the language? Well, let me ask you this. How did your knowledge of English go? When you learn English, you didn't learn English using grammar if it's your native language. You just would have learned it by picking it up. And how was your experience learning grammar in school when all you had to work through was English? The reality is that grammar isn't that easy to learn. It's not necessarily that much fun to learn either, for that matter. It's important and it's really helpful, but if you are already proficient in the language, then why would you need to learn the grammar? And so what tends to happen is that proficiency in the language tends to mean that there's no incentive to go learn the grammar. And so people don't. And I've seen people go through programs where they've learned how to read the Greek and converse in Greek, but yet they don't understand the grammar, and it's too hard for them to learn because it feels like going backwards to be able to learn that material that they should have learned when they were going through and learning Greek the first time. So learn your grammar. Learn it well while you're going through and learning your Greek. It's going to serve you well. It's going to help build bridges. And it's going to mean that when you finish learning Greek and you're able to read the New Testament in the original language, not only are you going to be able to read it, but you'll be able to study it like a scholar because you will know all the grammar that the scholars know. You will know how the language works. You will know the language of language. But perhaps I'm wrong. I'd love to hear if you think I'm wrong, or if you agree with me, or whatever it is. Just leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you there. Thanks so much for watching, and keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery of the Greek of the New Testament so that you can read it and study it like a scholar. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll see you then.